Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I am doing another Star Wars Legends book review, and that is for Darksaber by Kevin J. Anderson. So Darksaber is the second entry in the Callista trilogy, which, as far as I'm aware, is an unofficial trilogy. I mean, it is a trilogy, it's a sequence of books, but it's not generally officially considered a trilogy as far as I'm aware, but it's generally considered the Callista trilogy. Second entry. The first entry is the last book that I reviewed, which is Children of the Jedi by Barbara Hambly. Children of the Jedi I was a little iffy on. I wouldn't say it is the worst thing that I have ever read, but it really did not leave basically any impression on me. I didn't really think it was that memorable. Nothing about it really stood out to me all that much. So going into this one, I was hoping to enjoy it more, but I was still a little bit unsure. Still thinking, well, I didn't really love the first one. I don't know if I'll like this one because it is, the next book. But the thing that kind of kept me going a little bit is it is written by Kevin J. Anderson, who wrote the Jedi Academy trilogy, which I also reviewed a couple months ago back on the channel. And even though I don't love all of that trilogy, I do love the first book, and I think each subsequent book was a little bit less good. But it is a trilogy that I have a big soft spot for because I read it in high school and I loved it. It was one of the only EU books that I read back then. And I love a lot of the characters in that and everything, and I enjoy Kevin Anderson's writing generally. In that trilogy. So I was hoping that I would enjoy this one more, and thankfully I did. So start off with the positives as usual. This book for me was definitely a character book. I kind of use those terms as like, if a book's plot was particularly compelling to me, or if a book's characters were particularly compelling. For me, this was a character book through and through. The plot was not bad by any means, but the characters are what really kept me going. I loved seeing all of the characters and their interactions and all that stuff. Like I said, Kevin Anderson also wrote the Jedi Academy books, and many characters from those books make an appearance in this one. Of particular note, Dala is basically the main antagonist of this book, or at least one of them, along with Pelion, who is from the Thrawn trilogy, actually, who is probably my favorite character at the moment to have come out of that trilogy, aside from Thrawn, although I do prefer canon Thrawn over Legends Thrawn at the moment. As far as the books, I haven't seen him in Rebels, but generally I prefer canon Thrawn over Legends Thrawn. But aside from that, Pelion is my favorite character out of that trilogy. But anyways, Dala's in here. Several of the Jedi characters from Jedi Academy are in here, like Kip Duron and Dorsk 81, who both are kind of go on some trips together in this book. And there's some other characters from that trilogy that show up. You get, of course, the original trilogy characters. You get Han and Leia and Luke and 3PO and so on. And they are all good as well. Callista, of course, appears in this book because she was in the first book. And this is the second in the Callista trilogy, so obviously she's here. I also enjoyed the stuff with Luke and Callista. Kind of in this book, the kind of journey they're going on is that Luke is kind of bringing her around the galaxy to some places where he really learned a lot about the Force and things like that. Because in the first book, Children of the Jedi, Callista was like in a computer. It was weird, and I don't entirely get how it works, but she was like not physically like manifested. She was just like a spirit stuck in like a computer type thing. And then she gets a physical body. And as a result of that, even though she was a Jedi, as a result of the kind of transferring into a physical body, she has lost her ability to use the Force. And so this book, her and Luke are basically trying to figure out how to get that back. I really enjoyed that side of it. Their interactions in terms of trying to figure that out, and Callista kind of dealing with that were interesting. I don't necessarily buy them being in a relationship, but I'll get to that later. But I enjoyed that, and again, all the other characters. I love Dorsk 81 and Kip Duron being together. I love Pelion and Dala and their interactions and them individually. They both have some great moments in this book. And just generally the characters in here I really, really enjoyed. And not really that big of a positive, because the character thing is really the positive that I have for this one, but I also just enjoyed reading it. It was just an enjoyable book. Nothing like absolutely mind-blowing for me, but it was just a generally good, enjoyable book. In terms of negatives for this one, even though I don't have many positives to say, the positive for me far outweighs the negatives. But as far as negatives, the plot itself was not terribly compelling for me. Like I said, this for me is much more of a character book than a plot book. So even though I did enjoy the characters a lot, I was not as crazy about the plot. Not a bad plot by any means, but it just didn't really grab me the same way as the characters did. And also, like I said earlier, Luke and Callista, while I really enjoyed the stuff they were doing in this book, I just don't buy them being in a relationship together at all. I don't recall if I mentioned this in my Children of the Jedi review, but I really just, they formed a relationship in that book, and I just did not buy it whatsoever. That's still the case here. I don't really feel like they, I don't feel the chemistry there between the two of them or anything. It doesn't work for me. I enjoy their interactions with each other, but every time they're like, oh, I want to be with you forever, I love you so much, and all these things, it just, in my mind, just does not make sense. So that kind of, it would be like a really good scene, and then at the end they would be like, oh, I love you so much, and I'd be like, no, that doesn't work in my head. But other than that, I enjoyed them. So that's pretty much all I have to say, which is not very much, to be honest, but I did really enjoy this one, and I think the positives, as I said, very much outweigh the negatives, and I really just enjoyed this book a lot. It was probably, some of you who may have been keeping up with my Legends videos lately, I have been quite hard on Legends recently. There have been a couple of books that I have really enjoyed recently in the last 3-4 months. I really enjoyed Red Harvest a lot. That is, I would say, one of my favorite EU books that I have read so far. I also enjoyed the first Agents of Chaos book in the New Jedi Order series, which is the 4th book of that series. Enjoyed that one quite a bit. I thought Truce of Bakura was okay, but otherwise, I think I gave a fairly positive score to Courtship of Princess Leia as well, but as I've gotten further from it, it's dropped for me, to be honest. So that score is not entirely accurate anymore for me. But other than those few, a lot of my Legends reviews have been mixed to negative recently. So it was very, very refreshing to basically have my first genuinely, really enjoyable Legends book in probably a couple of months at least, really. So that was very nice. As far as a rating I would give this one, it would probably be like an 8 out of 10. Which is very good, for sure. Not the best Legends book I've ever read by any means, not even one of the best, but it was a very enjoyable book. I really loved the characters in here. Again, the connections to Jedi Academy just made me very happy, and I loved seeing all those characters again, and they were all handled very well and all that stuff. I really enjoyed this book a lot. It was just, yeah, it was generally a very, very good read. But anyways, that is pretty much all I got for you for this review. So let me know down in the comments if you have read this book and what you thought of it, if so. And if you haven't read this book, then let me know if this made you more interested in it or anything like that. I will be reading the 3rd book of this sequence, Planet of Twilight, next. Probably will be starting that later tonight. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm a little unsure about it, once again, because it's also written by Barbara Hambly, who did the 1st book. Plus, I have talked to several people over the course of the last little while about these books, and mostly have heard that that is one of the weakest EU books that they have read. So I'm a little unsure about it, but I am hoping that I enjoy that one a bit more than this one. So anyways, that is pretty much all I got for you today. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.